In today's world, there are many examples of touching friendship between humans and animals. Most often it is about pets, which are loyal to their owners until the end of their life. But sometimes there are cases where the friendship of a human and an animal is possible even in the wild. In our story, the main characters had not only to pass the severe test of the cold, but also to see the amazing loyalty of wild animals. It happened a few years ago in the icy wilderness of Spitsbergen, halfway between Norway and the North Pole. It is no secret that the climate in the polar archipelago is extremely harsh. Since other than tourism and coal mining, there were almost no other ways to earn money on Spitsbergen, the majority of the inhabitants of the archipelago worked in the mine. Most of them were specialists from Eastern Europe, who were attracted to mining in the polar latitudes. For transportation, the shift workers mostly used snowmobiles. One day, one of the newly arrived miners was driving his snowmobile in the direction of the village where he was supposed to work for at least a year. Among the monotonous snowfields and icy dunes, it was hard to see anything interesting. Suddenly, the man saw a small furry animal flicker ahead. The miner stopped and carefully got off the snowmobile. Walking around the vehicle, the man was surprised to find a fluffy lump behind the snowdrift. Looking more closely, the miner realized that it was a polar bear cub. It is difficult to say why the cub was alone and where its mother was at that moment. From the bear cub's sunken sides and its worried expression, the miner realized the cub was most likely deprived of parental care. The miner took the cub in his arms, put it on his neck, and drove off in the direction of the workers' camp. When the man took the cub into the warm room, it immediately became more alive and cheerful. The miner, to the cheers of his colleagues, opened a tin of condensed milk, crumbled some bread, and fed the cub. Fed, the bear cub curled up next to the stove and immediately fell asleep. The man did not bother the baby, thinking that when it had a good sleep, it would go away on its own. But to his surprise, the bear cub stayed in the village the next day. The fluffy cub played and frolicked, unspeakably delighting the miners, whose leisure time was not much fun. Over time, the bear cub became something like a pet for the miners. Of course, they all knew that it was a wild animal, but for now, it remained just a baby, devoid of its mother. The bear cub got very used to the miners and always accompanied them to work. But one day, the fluffy cub felt nervous and uneasy, and when the man who saved him from starvation was getting ready for work, the bear got his teeth into his pant leg and would not let him make a single step. The miner managed with great difficulty to free himself from the embrace of his little friend. When he left for work, of course, the man was unaware that this shift would be his last. About 2 hours after they had started work in the pit, the roof collapsed, and the bear cub's friend was fatally injured by a piece of rock. After this happened, the furry cub whimpered and frantically scratched against the door, trying to get out. When the bear cub was finally released, it ran off in an unknown direction, disappearing into the snows of the polar archipelago. Several years have passed since the miner's tragic death, but his colleagues often see a huge polar bear watching them from behind the nearest hillside. It's hard to say whether it was the same grown-up bear cub or another adult bear, but one thing the miners were sure of: the furry cub sensed danger and tried to warn his two-legged friends, because bears, just like people, have a good memory and always respond with good to good. Friends, if you liked this amazing story, write your comments, and share this video with your friends. Bye!